Hi, this is Scott Herbst. I am founder and president of Six Flex Training and Consulting, and you are listening to the Flex Podcast, where we have conversations with people who are expressing their leadership with the intention of giving you access to expressing yours. I am especially excited for today's guest. We're going to shift a little bit from what we've been doing. We've typically been interviewing business owners or executives. And today we're going to have a conversation with Jessica Belokas, who, in addition to owning and running a business, is the president of the Arizona Association for Behavior Analysis. And that's actually what we're going to be talking with her about. I'm excited about this because Jessica and I actually go way back and know each other from pretty close to the beginning of the pandemic, where I really got to see her provide leadership to a group of association leadership. And I've also I know that the Arizona Association is known, Jessica, you might not know this, but is known for actually going above and beyond what you would expect of a typical state chapter. And it's under Jessica's leadership that has happened. So I'm really excited to welcome Jessica. Jessica, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me, Scott. It's good to reconnect.
It is my pleasure. Here's where I want to start this. Will you just share a little bit about what got you into leadership? And it could be, how you arrived in that seat, what called to you about it. Anything you want to share just to kind of represent yourself and be known a little bit.
Yeah, of course. Leadership to me has been something that I've somewhat fallen into accidentally, which I think is a lot of the behavior analysts that I hear their journey into behavior analysis, finding themselves interested in the science and finding themselves interested in mentorship and guiding others. And that was a little bit of my journey too. Back in 2014, 15-ish, I started to really explore in the community and find ASIABA, the Arizona Association for Behavior Analysis, and the community there, and really wanted to get involved as, an earlier career behavior analyst. I was entering into becoming a clinical director and wanting to get out into the community more and see what I could do to establish connections and create those relationships with other providers and practitioners. And I would say my tenure at ASIABA happened through those connections. And that's one of our values at ASIABA is meaningful connection and community. And it happened that at one of the events, I had been attending regularly, and some of the board members approached me and, inquired whether or not I would be interested in joining. And at that time, there was really less of a process for joining the board. And since then, we've kind of changed that. But I said, what would I have to do? And, they explained to me, join some meetings and be a representative in the community. And I said, you know what, I'm game, let's go. And kind of that has been a shaping moment for the last 10 years of my career. I remember that moment, and shout out Dr. Aaron Blocker-Rubin for really leading the association then and being a groundbreaker of, finding passionate leaders for the future. And I hope to follow in that suit.
Awesome. Thank you. And I'm curious, if you can look at that moment, what had it be memorable for you? I'm curious about that.
Yeah. So in that moment, that was at a local agency's event that they were putting on for ASIABA. And I remember distinctly the community. I remember talking with others who, I admired and respected for their work and what they had done in the community, and them being so selfless and willing to share that with others, presenting their information and presenting the work that they'd done and how to replicate that with others, regardless of their association with an organization, or regardless of their quote unquote, status, or, research that they had done, or accolades and things like that. They were willing to share and willing to help others. I found myself in a moment where I was seeking that kind of guidance in the next step of my career. And they were so open to that, and they continue to be to this day. I think of the leaders often and how I want to emulate what I've learned from them over my career. And that was a moment that stuck out to me. It's just how willing they were to share their knowledge and share their expertise, and in a human way, in a way that wasn't pompous or centered on their ego or look what I've done, but more so, I'm here in community with you, willing to share with you and willing to help you be successful, so that we can then give that to the community who's looking for, good quality services.
Awesome. And then so that's how you came on the board.
Yeah.
Right. And you spent some time on the board, and then moved into the president role.
Yes.
Can you say a little bit about that transition, and what had you, I guess, what called to you about that? What difference you saw you could make? What spoke to you about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, I sat on the board in the first moments as a non-voting member. That was, kind of a learning opportunity, which was really, really great. I sat and observed and kind of learned the workings of the board. And then, we were looking to establish a new program committee chair, which at the time did the organization for the conference. And I myself love to plan a good party. So I said, hey, sign me up. I can do that, not knowing the pandemic would be coming and that we would be having all of the challenges of going into a virtual conference. But I took up the program committee chair role then, and it was a fun and wild ride, I would say, during those couple of years, 2020 to 2022. But post that, I had done a lot of work and
was your first conference a COVID conference, the one that you planned?
My first conference was the year before COVID, 2019. Okay. And that was our big shift from a smaller venue to a mid-size venue. Yeah. And then the second conference was the COVID conference. So, learning what force majeure was and all of that was a fun dive into being program chair. Post that, some individuals had come to me and said, hey, have you considered running for president? And I hadn't really considered that. I was really enjoying the role of program committee chair with all the challenges, and especially the members of the program committee who were so dedicated, and working with them was so much fun. And putting on a great event was a lot of hard work and a lot of fun. But, I actually ran for president one year and didn't win the election. And one of my colleagues was able to be elected. And I think that was fantastic at the time. I was a little disappointed in myself, but also then saw another great leader in her tenure. For the 3 years, we have a 3-year term in president-elect, president, and past president. And I was able to learn a great deal from that individual. And then I won the subsequent year. And it's interesting to me looking back on my different roles throughout the association, because I see the presidency role as one more of moderation, and you run the meetings and you kind of guide, but the real work happens a lot at the committee level and the chair levels, and you put in a lot of great work there. And I'm forever grateful for those opportunities to be able to really contribute to the association in the leadership roles as program committee chair and equity, diversity, and inclusion committee chair. That's where I feel like, you really roll up your sleeves and put a lot of work into the association. And these last couple of years as president, I would say, Are actually less of the hands-on, work and more of guiding and setting up the association for success in the future. That's really what I'm focused on now with sustainability and scalability and guiding the next generation, so to speak, of leaders in Arizona and helping them to identify their great opportunity to contribute.
Awesome. I am curious. I want to know more about, you said it was disappointing to lose that election.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm curious, and this is really for our listeners, that I know that disappointment can be a place where people get thwarted in their leadership. And personally, it's been easy for me when things don't go necessarily the way that I want them to pull back. But it sounds like, in the face of this disappointment, that you used it as an opportunity. And I'm wondering if you could say something about what you learned from that, or what your mindset was coming out of that empowered you, that, had it be an opportunity.
Yeah. I think that anytime that there's quote unquote a loss, I guess, so to speak, you think about it in terms of, oh, what could I have done better? Or what was it that, I didn't present to the community that made me the choice in that particular situation. And, moving through that, I think you look at the contributions that you have to offer and what else you have to offer. And, I was also afforded some opportunities during that time to participate in different ways and, became the equity, diversity, and inclusion chair at that time. And I took it more as a prompt, if you will, that was the focus for me at that time. And I think that, then I was able to focus my energies and developing that and to, really create something that was at the time somewhat groundbreaking in the association realm and helped others to identify goals there. That was actually another place where wasn't exactly an initial success, but really then started to take off with tenacity. And I think it's really always about reflection for me of, okay, this may not have been exactly what I envisioned it to be, is this perfect success, if you will, right out the gate, but reflect on it and pinpoint the situations or the circumstances that could be improved and then make that better. And that's constantly what we've been doing at the association, and what I try to do just personally over the years is look at where, that feedback or that failure is feedback, right? I've heard that, and I love that. Failure is feedback, and that feedback is then knowledge, is then power, is then able to move you to the next best thing. And that's really happened over the course of the 10 years I've been with ASIABA.
Awesome. Correct me if I'm putting words in your mouth or misheard, but I heard a couple things. One is that you took time to actually reflect and look at, okay, what can I learn from this? And the other thing I really heard is that you then, whatever you saw in your reflection, looked at, okay, well, where can I contribute? And that led you to, I actually really want to talk more about the Equity, Diversity, Inclusion Committee, because you said, it sounded like you were saying that you actually started that committee or picked it up in stages.
Yeah, we actually, that committee formed out of the tragedy and turmoil of 2020. The ABBA board came together and really, in the light of, the murder of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and others, we, really wanted to look at how we could not only take a stance and make a statement, but also take action. And so the board decided that an EDI committee would be formed and there should be a chair. And I was elected as co-chair at that time, my colleague. Raquel, and that was quite an honor to me at the time. I was selected from the board to spearhead that. And so we started the committee together based on the board's initiative, and then took it to the community because we were also having, membership tell us that this is something that they wanted. Membership at ASIABA is outspoken on what they're looking for and what they need. And we took that to the community, and we started it with a kickoff, really looking at some of the existing literature in, cultural humility and the practice of social justice. And then we started to really formulate what the committee would look like and what it would be. And I was a part of that initial inception. And I'll tell you, I came into that a little hot, came in a little strong. And that was one of the moments that I reflect on often in terms of, sometimes you do a lot of work. And at that time, I had done a lot of inner work, as many had done, reflecting on my own biases, reflecting on my own cultural humility practices, and reflecting on what I was contributing to my clients. And I realized when we had our first meeting of the EDI kind of inception, I came in with a plan, full-blown, 40-page PowerPoint deck of how ASIABA is going to solve equity, diversity, and inclusion. And the 75 plus people there were a little stunned, whoa. we're not exactly there yet. And we have some ideas too. And I had took a real step back, and we took a step back, and we had a subsequent meeting where we really did more of a strategic plan. And I reflect a lot on the moments after that where I knew immediately after the meeting. I said to myself, wow, that wasn't good. I came in that nobody was where I was at.
What tipped you off?
That was the time frame where we had Zoom meetings, and everything was virtual. And I could tell from the vibe of the meeting, what people were giving as far as their feedback non-verbally, even on the screen, was a little oh my goodness, this is a lot. And there were some moments where folks were can we take a step back? They were, pretty oh, I'm not sure I'm understanding. And then at the end of the meeting, just looking at, you didn't really know where we were to go from there. And then I had some reflection time with my colleagues who were able to give me, hey, I said to them, I know that didn't go the way that I was hoping. What do you guys think? And they said, yeah, I think it's good that we take a step back. And, they really encouraged me to keep going, because I felt really defeated in that moment. I felt I felt the association. I wanted to come in with a plan so that other people didn't have to do a lot of work. I like to, help others with resources. I like to provide a game plan, provide a, step-by-step process that we can get this done easy. And what I recognized was that that's not what the association wanted. That's not what the membership wanted. They wanted to be a part of the solution. And that's when I think that was a key moment in my journey of leadership, so to speak, of recognizing that you can't just come in with the solution. You are the person that helps guide to the outcome and helps be a part of that process. And if you come in with that solution, you're not really going to get that buy-in. And, it may be a slower process, and that's okay. Because everyone is in a different stage of their journey, regardless of what you're looking at, whether that be EDI or some strategic initiative at your organization, or an association, strategic action. You as a leader, myself as a leader, have really learned a lot of patience, because I tend to be a little bit bull in a china shop of getting things done. And when I have my focus, I can really focus in. But you really have to focus on that patience, and it creates more of a sustainable outcome if everyone is involved in the creation of that ultimate initiative or goal, rather than, you dragging folks along.
I love that. I'm hearing that what I'm hearing is leadership less as solving the problems, figuring things out, taking care of things, and more in this case of really creating a space and the opportunity for others to contribute and work towards their vision.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
After that, the EDI committee created 4 separate work groups with 4 separate goals that then sustained on for several years and are still working now. And my job was really, as I saw it, to continue to check in and provide resource and provide feedback or assistance when they needed it, when they asked for it, rather than setting the goal and moving all of the goalposts.
And what has that been like for you? I'm curious, moving from this, like, okay, I got to solve the problems, I got to provide, I got to, I got to give people the answers.
Yeah.
To more of the like, okay, I really got to give people room to express their creativity and their leadership and their vision. And if you could say something about just the different experience between the two, having
Yeah.
been both places.
Yeah. At first it was hard for me being a type A personality, liking to have that control. And as a behavior analyst, you design and you implement. But I think that is the elevation of our trajectory of our careers. You do move from that less of that hands-on as when I was a technician, I was able to do the work. And then you have to move into that supervisory role where you're modeling and you're training. And then even further than that, when you're in a clinical director role or a VP role or an owner role, you really have to let go of a lot of control. And I see that as a big challenge for a lot of professionals these days. And mentoring through that has been something that has been a big focus of my leadership or different positions over the course of time. And really finding your own strategies to manage those tendencies to want to jump in and solve or want to jump in and do, and checking yourself when that becomes if that's your go-to style, how you give yourself those different strategies for remaining patient and helping to guide to the ending. It was challenging at first, but then rewarding in the end, because now looking at the board and looking at the leaders who are kind of set up for the future, I find a lot of reinforcement in seeing those folks be successful. And there's folks that I've tapped the shoulder of as well and said, hey, you might be good for this, or have you considered joining, or perhaps you want to present the work that you've done. This is amazing work. And those little prompts, then seeing those folks then grow on to really exciting presentations or roles in the community, or future program committee leaders, run the biggest conference that we've had to date at a new venue that's really exciting. It's really cool to see that, and to see that perhaps you had a little small part of it. I definitely don't take credit for the work that they do, but knowing that you help to encourage that and maybe move that along the line is incredibly reinforcing.
Yeah. Awesome. I love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
We are getting close to the edge of our time. I am wondering if you will share what you see as next for. There's 2 places to look here. There's in terms of what you're looking to do in terms of setting up your organization. You're got to be coming to the end of your term.
Yeah.
And looking at, okay, what's next for the organization, but
Yeah.
also what is next for you as a leader, and what's your next edge and place for growth?
Oh, yeah. So, for the association, we've been working really hard the last several years on creating scalability and sustainability for the next set of leaders for ASIABA. So we've created different initiatives to make sure we have board interview procedures and onboarding procedures. And we've created so many different things over the last couple of years and initiatives that now we have the most, I think, applicants to be on the board that we've ever had. Back in COVID, nobody was volunteering to join a nonprofit board. That was something that we were like, oh, we need more leaders, we need more people to do the work. There's lots of work to do. And now we've had an overwhelming interest in applications to be not only board leaders but SIG and committee leaders. And so we're really focused right now on creating simplified processes and setting them up for success. And we're even looking to future leadership development programs to help those future leaders of ASIABA. And I'm really proud of the work that we've done thus far with our strategic planning and where it's going to go in the future. I think ASIABA will be really set up for success for those future leaders to step up and really continue to live the vision of the association with, less challenges, hopefully. And then for me, I'm focusing on continuing my personal growth and the journey with my newer business. And I am hoping to really help other professionals really explore that for themselves as well. ABA can be one that you're really sometimes think that you're a part of a massive machine and maybe don't have that independent autonomy. And I'm hoping that I can provide that way for behavior analysts to find their own shine and find their own contribution and really elevate those. Like I said earlier, it's hugely reinforcing for me to see others be successful. I really love that, to see that multiplier effect, if you will, of helping a supervisee become a BCBA and then see what they do. It's a proud mama moment, and I want to see more of those in the future.
Yeah. You really love contributing to people and love seeing that contribution and seeing people around you grow. That's awesome. And I think probably that's a powerful place to lead from. Jessica, thank you so much for setting this time aside to talk and sharing your leadership insights and experience with our listeners. One more thing before we go, how can people reach you?
Oh, yeah, you can reach me at my organization, Inclusive Consulting Services, Jessica at inclusivecs.com.
Awesome. And as always, you can find me, Scott Herbst, at www.sixflextraining.com and email info there. And thank you so much for listening to The Flex.